Hi everyone, Ted Wyman here at Bell MTS Iceplex for the Winnipeg Sun, and I am with the Sun's newest sports writer, Scott Billick. Welcome to the department, Scott. It's going to be a heck of an interesting year for the Winnipeg-Jets, and it all gets started on Friday with training camp missing two of the biggest names on the team.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the biggest storyline. Well, it is the biggest storyline going into this, not having Patrik Laine, not having Kyle Connor, unless something happens between now or Saturday, really, when the Jets actually finally take the ice. Fridays will be medicals, and Saturday they have FanFest here at Bell MTS Iceplex. But yeah, I mean, not having Patrik Laine, not having Kyle Connor really throws a wrench into a problem that another underlying problem that this team has is trying to figure out who's going to be in their top six this year, and how they're going to jumble those lines, and who's going to play. Are Mark Scheifele and Blake Wheeler going to get split up and that sort of thing? Now you're going to have to start putting guys like maybe Matthew Perreault on the top line, or whatever. You're going to keep Brian Little, or you might keep Mark Scheifele and Blake Wheeler to there, because that's going to be your primary scoring line, because you don't really have the Kyle Connors and the Patrik Laines to provide also that scoring, right? So yeah, it's the biggest storyline. It's going to be the most intriguing thing on Saturday to see how they come out with the lines and what they're going to do, and then kind of just a waiting game to see when somebody's going to sign here.
Well, there's an awful lot of players in the NHL right now playing that waiting game.
Right.
RFAs all over the place, big names, people who are going to make big money. The Jets are not unique in that sense, but they are maybe a little unique in the fact that they have two of them. And obviously what we've been hearing from the camps of Kyle Connor and Patrik Laine is that, well, they're just going to wait and see. They want to get their money. They want to get paid. It's a very unique time in the NHL right now, and the Jets are definitely going to have to suffer from that. But they've been through this before. They had Josh Morrissey not available for the first couple of days of camp last year. He showed up, he signed, he played, and now he says he'd love to sign a long-term contract. Things can work out here even if it doesn't look so great right now.
Yeah, and there's also the flip side of that too, where Jacob Trouba, held out for quite a long time. Hold out is maybe not the correct word, given that they don't actually have a contract impasse. Exactly. So yeah, I mean, it is a unique situation in that there's two. How much it hamstrung the Jets this summer in terms of, could they have gone out and found maybe a depth defenseman, another depth forward? I mean, they went out and got a guy like Gabriel Bourque on a very cheap contract. But how much could they have done if they would have gotten, say, a bridge deal done for Laine in that maybe $6 to $7 million range, and then got something long term done with Connor, maybe in that $7 to $7.5 million range? Then you would have known, okay, well, at that point you maybe have one or two, maybe even $3 million to work with. Could have gone out and maybe improved the team on some others. You have a mass exodus that's just happened on defense here, and not really anything other than internal replacements thus far, and so now what happens if some guys get injured, and how does that depth get impacted by an injury? I mean, you could look at it, and skeptics will say it could be catastrophic for this team, especially on defense. So yeah, I mean, it's been a very interesting summer, and yeah, like that storyline kind of just it's a thread through the whole. It'll be a thread through the whole training camp right up until those guys sign.
And they literally had no choice, of course, when it came to signing other depth players, because they only have so much money, and they don't even know how much money they actually have, because they haven't signed these two guys yet. But a lot of the talk after last season was that there was maybe some discord in the dressing room, maybe some issues between the leadership of the team and some of the young players, particularly Laine. This is going to be an important training camp for them to reestablish themselves as the team that they were a couple of years ago. If they did have some issues last season, they have to make sure that's resolved. They have to make sure they know who's in charge. They have to make sure that the leadership is working with the young players to help them become better. And Paul Maurice is in charge of making sure that happens. Yeah,
I mean, the biggest challenge for anybody probably in this year is going to be Paul Maurice's, right? I mean, he's the coach that has to, you had a very good season where expectations kind of went through the roof. A year ago at this time, every question reporters were asking, either began with Stanley Cup or had Stanley Cup somewhere along, the line of questioning. And this year, that's not the case, and that is because the Jets kind of fell apart in the second half last season. Your first place in the Central and the Western Conference around Christmas, and then it just all goes, down the toilet, right? And the Jets didn't lose out on their playoff spot per se, but I mean, they're going on this downward trend where once they got into the playoffs, even the change of the season couldn't, really save them. And so, yeah, it's it's been said that Paul Maurice has his work cut out for him. The strife in the locker room, we don't know for certain. I mean, if that was the case, oftentimes when teams kind of go down, people will just start saying things, right? And that's the thing. And there's been a lot of rumors this summer that are completely unfounded. There's just no proof of them. But at the same time, I mean, losing creates strife. When the division and that sort of thing, that those are byproducts of losing, and then winning on the opposite side can, it's a cleanser. It can heal everything, right? So, yeah, that is the challenge. I mean, to get off to a good start for this team, to figure out in training camp what they need to get done in terms of just line combinations, what it looks like on the defense, all that sort of stuff, a recommitment to team defense, which fell apart in the last half of the season, where Connor Hellebuck's going to be, how big his workload should be, lots of things, and those are all going to contribute to whether the Jets can, quote unquote, bounce back from a, second place finish in the Central Division.
Well, and then let's look at, of course, the fact that last year no one expected the St. Louis Blues to come out and win the Stanley Cup. They were the last place team in January. They seemed like one of those teams that was on the decline. The year before, the Washington Capitals seemed like one of those teams that was on the decline. We understand that happens, and I'm sure Winnipeg Jets fans are hopeful that that can happen here as well. This team clearly did not have a very good second half last year, but let's also point out they lost to the best team in the National Hockey League in the first round of the playoffs. They lost to the St. Louis Blues. The Blues went on to win the Stanley Cup. There's no real shame in that, and shouldn't be that huge of a surprise. I don't think it means that they were a terrible hockey team. They've got to straighten some things out, no question, but especially that defense, the three guys who are gone from there, Tyler Myers, Ben Sherratt, and Jacob Trouba, of course, that's a really difficult hole to fill. But they have been drafting, and they do have some players in the system that they think can do well there. Who do you think may be filling those holes?
Well, and I think, you're looking at guys like Sami Niku, you're looking at guys like Neil Pionk, who they picked up in the Jacob Trouba trade. Both guys are young, of course, and perhaps even Tucker Pullman, right? I mean, let's not, the Jets lost a lot of experience on the back end. Whether or not they lost a lot of skill that can't be replaced, I guess, remains to be seen. I mean, Sami Niku, small sample size, but has shown well. Tucker Pullman, again, kind of has shown well in times, and then Neil Pionk is kind of up in the air. He played on a very good Rangers team last year, and didn't play with a very good defensive partner. Can Josh Morrissey, if that's the pairing, kind of elevate Pionk's game, and can Pionk, feel and play and be motivated differently, knowing that you're not on a team that's kind of rebuilding. The Jets aren't in a rebuild at all. I mean, this team is still a team that people will consider a Stanley Cup contender, even if they, have lost what they have lost. So, yeah, I think on the back end, I mean, there's going to be battles with Niku, and I think Pionk probably has a spot on the roster already. But yeah, Niku, Tucker Pullman. We'll see if Dmitry Kulikov is probably going to play a lot because of his experience. Paul Maurice likes to kind of lean on that. We've seen that in the past. And then up front, you're going to see whether if Christian Vesalainen can kind of make a way onto the roster, or Mason Appleton, who I think is going to play a big role this year with the absence of Brandon Tanev. So yeah, I think there's going to be some key battles and some jobs to be won, and kind of where everybody kind of plays out is again one of those things. This is the most, well, I won't call it the most important training camp, but it's the most intriguing in terms of just all the things that are kind of going on right now with this team.
Scott, thank you very much for your insight on this. We'll look forward to seeing that all season long. For Scott Billeck, I'm Ted Wyman at Bell MTS Iceplex.